Wow, everyone is so spread out. It's like, where do I look?
But we have people in the front row, so that's cool.
Okay, I'll just look at them. Hello everybody. My name is Colin Foss. I am the host of the Game Designers of Finland Meetup group. It's super nice to have you here. So many new faces and also very familiar faces. Welcome to you both. Maybe I'll just kick it off just to say a little bit about the overall the meetup. So originally this was actually organized before COVID. We had one meetup and I felt like during that time it was really great. Camilla was there actually. Hi, Camilla. And we had some really great discussions around game design. And the overall purpose of the meetup is really to create a community of game designers in Finland that hopefully that you, after this event specifically, that you'll be able to come away, have a chat with, go for a drink or meet up for lunch sometime later. So this is it is a networking event, but the whole purpose is really just to spin off into a little community and talk more about game design. I'll say, obviously, massive thanks to Supercell for hosting. Maybe we just give a round of applause for that. Thank you. And then also Mina in the corner there. She's been organizing from Supercell side, and then Edvard in the tech side. Thank you very much. Okay. So our meetup today will be roughly hour and a half. We'll have a panel discussion. Emilia, she'll be hosting this one. And we'll be Q&A afterwards. We were thinking that maybe all of the Q&A will be done here. The remote, you can ask questions, but then we'll prioritize the questions in the live space. But then later on, we can take a look at those questions and follow up with those. And then after that, we'll end around 8-ish. Let's see, time-wise. We'll end around 8, and then we'll just do open networking. And there's going to be food and stuff still left over, so feel free to dig in there. I think that's it. Without further ado, I'll leave it to Emilia. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Hi, everyone. I'm going to also start with thanks. Thanks to the Supercell people. I've organized a lot of days, so it's not easy to impress me, but I'm so impressed by the facilities, so thank you. Makes my job a lot easier. So my name is Emilia Machuca. Some of you I've met, but some I have not met yet. I'm a game industry social hustler and a professional networker, and definitely not a game designer. Hence, why I'll be asking the questions today. Let's keep it fun and casual, but please don't make me laugh. I have a broken rib. So
maybe at the end you'll have 2.
Oh, okay. So that's the goal. Okay, well, yeah. I there's not enough pills in this world for that. But Christin, let's start with you. So can you please introduce us? Introduce yourself to us. Tell us what you do, and most importantly, why.
Okay. Hi, I'm Christine. I currently work at Supercell. I'm still kind of a newbie. I landed here 1 year ago. Also landed in Finland 1 year ago. It's my first time out of the country. I originally come from Germany. I worked a long time at a German company called InnoGames, and before that at Ubisoft Germany. And what I'm doing here, I'm here at the moment working on a new game as a game designer. And why I'm doing games? I guess I've always been a gamer. Always wanted to do games. I studied literature and then was like, oh no, I don't want to. I didn't know that you could actually do something like that as a job. And then, a game school opened up in Germany, the first one ever. And then I went there, and then somehow fast forward, I ended up here. So, hi, nice to meet you.
Cool. Nice to meet you. And then, Barbara, you're next.
Hello, I'm Barbara. I've met quite a few of you, and a lot of people still to meet. That's not the question. Yes. Right. Yes, I'm nervous, Anyways, I come from Mexico originally. I studied industrial design, so nothing to do with that. I came to Finland, had no network, knew no one, didn't know the language. I was living in Tampere, and then someone suggested, like, why not game design? You like, making games. You like games. And I'm like, is that a life choice? Can I do that? People get paid for that? Like, sign me up straight into all the courses and whatnot. Why I do it? Ever since I was a kid, I really love video games, and I think it was very meaningful to me when I started encounter games that represented me, that there was a female character. It was kind of like, games are for me. And then, of course, when you have the meaningful choices that you were able to affect the world that you were playing in, that was very impactful for me. And it's kind of like, I want to do that. I want to make those experiences that make people feel that, because they were so good for me. So what else? Oh, of course. What am I doing? I'm a game designer. I just recently started at Futureplay. I've been doing it for 2-3 months or so with my great team that is over there. Hello. Anyways, yes, I get nervous.
Okay,
Next.
good. Inari.
Hi, I'm Inari. I'm a game and narrative designer. I studied about 12 years ago now, with tabletop RPG. Then I was a podcaster in France about game theory and related matters in general. Then I decided to move out to game design overall, in video games especially. So I started working in smaller companies as an intern. Once my studies were done, I started as a freelancer and indie worker. I've been working on a lot of smaller games, but that had very different approaches, ranging from board game with an AI to TV show to a lot of other formats. And then I went to Ubisoft in Lyon. The studio was called Ivory Tower. I initially applied as a game designer there. Unfortunately, there was too much competition, and they offered me a narrative position because my background was in literature and languages. And I was like, yeah, sure. If there's no one that wants the job as well, I'm pretty sure to get it, so I got it. I stayed there for a bit more than a year working on The Crew, so a card game, which makes everyone laugh in general because I'm a narrative designer officially. And they're like, oh, there's no narrative in card games. Yeah, tell yourself what you want. After that, I went to found a studio with other people from Ubisoft and other companies that was called Hoaxwell, working on a computer RPG as a narrative systems designer because my focus still is systems. It didn't work that much, so I went back to Ubisoft, but to another studio working on Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is coming this year. Well, we hope. And recently I joined Next Games here in Helsinki, where I'm supporting people as a narrative designer. Why am I doing this? When I was a kid, I was struck by Final Fantasy VII, and I wanted to bring that kind of joy to the people that can play games. It's not the only thing I want to do. I've been working on therapeutical games and meaning in games in general. So that's why.
Okay, that's interesting. Perfect. Thank you. And then we have Emmi.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Emmi Kärnä. I think my game design journey started originally from my bachelor's degree, which was a degree in tourism management, surprisingly. But luckily it did contain a lot of interesting stuff about service design and experience economy design, which eventually led me to my first game design career path route. In 2015, me and my spouse were visiting Tallinn, and at the time I was between jobs, and we were thinking like it would be really cool to have a project together. So accidentally we ended up playing an escape room game, and we found a company after 1 month, and then things started rolling quite quickly, and in 3 years, we had 7 locations all over Finland, and we had 70 employees, and we were running like one of the biggest ones in Finland. And for 5 years, we did multiple different escape room projects, but we also did different customer projects where people were ordering different sorts of games to different places. And that is essentially what I still do as a freelancer. In 2019, we made an exit from our company, and that's when I decided that now I want to do a master's. So that's how I ended up in Aalto University. So currently, besides doing my PhD at the computer sciences, I'm also doing freelance jobs. And fun fact, for example, in 2021, to give you some context what type of projects we normally do, we designed an escape room game to Olkiluoto nuclear plant. So that type of stuff. So it can range quite widely to all different locations, but I think in 2019 was the time when I finally decided that now I want to try digital games. So that's where I'm now at the moment.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, didn't answer the question. I'm sorry.
And the last one, the most important
Why
part.
do I do this? Okay,
Yeah.
I think I've had the most amazing experiences when I've actually seen players play the games, and I know it's a privilege that normally game designers are not able to have as many times as you are able to have when you are hosting escape games, but you can see how people really transform when they are playing and how they are releasing that inner child within from themselves. And then the funniest thing is that after they come out, they are denying that they were excited. And you actually do know that you were excited. I do know that.
So people are secretly competitive. They do not want to admit it.
Exactly. And they are secretly in a child.
Okay.
So
good to know.
That's the point. Yeah. Some more than others.
Perfect. Isn't this the best industry? Because all of us, we have very different backgrounds. I studied politics, international relations. I'm an EU affairs expert. And we all have a very different background of what we studied. But then we had this one thing in common, that we loved games from a very early stage. And I think that applies to a lot of people in this room and also watching the stream. So that's something that we're so fortunate that this hobby, we got a career out of it. But okay, let's move forward. Let's see if I know how to use this. Thanks. I think this was already did. Okay. So next, we're gonna stay still in this intro part. I would like you to describe your typical work day as detailed as possible, because we wanna focus on the concrete part here. So what kind of tools you use? What kind of processes? What would you like to have? Is there a tool that doesn't exist that you would need, or something like that? And I think this time, Inari, can you start?
Yeah, sure. My typical, I don't really have a typical work day because I'm in a support role. So usually I go around by asking what will be the future needs of any team in the company. That's what I'm trying to do when I can. But there's so much stuff to be done because we're working on several projects. And really depending on the project, I'm not doing the same thing. Like this week, I've been working with Figma, making dialogue systems mock-ups so that the rest of the team can picture themselves a little further down the line, because there's a lot that is happening there. Other days, so not in this company, but for example, when I was working at Ubisoft, I would start the day by installing the most recent build for Assassin's Creed, then play for an hour or two taking notes, and then implementing whatever I needed implementing or altering so that it would fit the best possible in the game. Overall, what I'm using most of the time is Miro. I use it in my everyday processes. It's a very potent tool, in my opinion. I've been using PowerPoint for years before that to do the exact same thing, just to sort through my thoughts. But now there's Miro, where I can do whatever. It's way too powerful to ignore. Otherwise, most of my tools, to me, game design is a work of communication. So my main tool is actually the tool that the company is communicating with. So at the moment, it's Slack. When I was at Ubisoft, it was Microsoft Teams. I spent way too much time there, but my most powerful tool is actually coffee.
Yes.
I didn't wait for Finland to be into coffee. But yeah, overall, gathering with people around the coffee machine and just discussing, building trust, because that's the thing I need. I'm in a support role. I'm the only narrative designer for a more than 100 people company. And it's the smallest company I've been in as the only narrative designer. So I'm used to this role.
So with whom do you discuss or talk on a daily basis? Like which team or which roles?
UX designers, game designers, sometimes UI artists. at the moment. As a narrative designer, I can do world building, but we're in a specific case where we're mostly working with pre-existing IPs, so I don't have to do the world building, but rather the IP analysis when I can. So overall, I'm discussing with everyone that is in the team and that can be interested. So if I'm going to programmers, it's about how do we manage the data on the longer run, or can we do this? If I'm going to game designers, it's to try to improve the narrative value of a given mechanic. If I'm going to UI artists, is that, can we do this to improve the feeling of that? There's quite a few tasks that are different. That's the main problem with narrative design, is that there's no unified list of tasks that we're doing on a daily basis. And being both a game and narrative designer with a graphic designer background as well, because I've been doing that outside the industry, there's way too many things I can do for me to have a list of 3 tasks I'm doing every day.
Okay. Thank you. Barbara, you want to go next?
Sure. What do I do with the first? I either start at home or at the office. I like to check, of course, communication, messages, to see if there's anything like that you have missed. Usually we use Slack. I always have Linear open to see what task we were working on, what's next, etc. I really love going straight to fork and see if anyone has pushed anything. And I love pulling and then working on the latest that we have, and then going, of course, into my task. And if we're working on a feature or something, then go and see what has been the progress, where can I continue working, etc. So other tools that I just start selling to everyone. It's for free actually. ShareX, I don't know if you know it, but it's a great tool for taking like snapshots of whatever you're doing and then adding numbers and highlighting, blurring, etc. So it's kind of like very, very nice and handy when you're trying to show. It's kind of like, hey, I saw this in the, like, oh, I'm getting a bug here, it's going there, like very quick snaps. Sometimes OBS, just to record, do some small screen recordings of videos so I can show something particular to other team members. I think the one that I enjoy the most, of course, is Chrome and menial tabs of sheets, because I love Excel and sheets, and I think those are one of the tools that I like the most, and I really love kind of like if I'm working on something and then I figure, hey, this would be easier to do if I did this little formula thing that, let's figure out a formula for doing this. And it's kind of like start building. I always like build my own like design helper tools sheet, and then I start importing everything and moving and back and forth. And I think I find a lot of value in that, and I really enjoy making it. For as weird that maybe for this crowd it's not weird, but for non-designers it's kind of like Excel, like what, what else?
With whom do you work?
Well, with other designers, it's always very nice learning. So, for example, right now that I'm in the early stage that you just join a new team and you're learning the tools, you're learning the process and how the product has been built and like how to interact with it. Like, of course, talking with people all the time. Like, I really... I always cheat a little bit, and I'm always looking at the social media, what are players saying. So like I always want to have a very strong communication also with the player experience team, support, community, because that's my background actually. Like that's what I used to do. So like I find a lot of value in what's coming from that side. Like for example, working directly with the programmers and with the artists, and it's kind of like trying to like make your feature like come together. And like for example today, like right before coming here, it's kind of like pushing the last stuff into Git. It's kind of like, ooh, yes, this is going out. That's great. So like that's something that I really enjoy and I really value, because in previous roles like the PEX role, it's usually very siloed. Like you're usually working more like in your corner doing your thing, and I didn't get to participate like this with other team members. So it was always kind of like a one person team doing something, and now it's kind of like talking with everyone. Like I'm a social person, maybe a bit weird on the public speaking, but like definitely talking to people directly, like I really like it and enjoy it. So it's what else? Yeah. I suddenly ran out of breath.
Thank you. Okay. You want to go next, Christin?
Sure. Here, Inari, you mentioned Miro. I just discovered Miro. It's amazing. It's so great, especially if you have people that are not in the room or you have to coordinate with outsourcers or something. I took over a bunch of art outsourcing for our team at the moment. It's really, really great. I'm still amazed by the Zoom levels you can do. It's like whoever didn't try Miro yet, give Miro a shot. It's really, really amazing. It's a good recommendation. Apart from that, I'm in a bigger team now, like 30-ish people, and there it's like gets more and more important that we do have real tools and processes in place, like we really have documentation. For documentation, I usually use Wiki, or I really like Balsamiq wireframes, because there you can like very visually put stuff together and drop it in Slack, because not everybody might now have the time to look at it, so everybody can look at it whenever they have some free minutes to really wrap their brains about stuff. And but yeah, most of the time I guess it's Outlook, because we have like a big team space, can be loud, so I really like to like sometimes gather people into meeting rooms, and I feel like game designers, we usually facilitate a lot, pick a lot of brains, try to get the ideas out of all the people's minds, and then sit down with all the information and try to figure out what's best. So I guess getting people into one page and really align people and everybody's heard, that's like most things I do per day.
Okay, that's interesting. You mentioned facilitating. I think that's clearly something that, because I mean, being a game designer, there's so many things you can do, but I think that sort of sums it up nicely. Okay, then Emmi.
Yeah, I 100% agree, because that was actually one main thing that I was going to say.
Yeah.
That at times it feels like a lot of my job is facilitating something either out of the client or out of the team in one way or the other. And I think that's where the tools or processes come in hand. That the same things that you use with yourself when you are in that exploratory mode, when you are still trying to get the ideas, you use with the team or you use with the client. And I also joined the Miro team, but I do use diagrams, which isn't as good as Miro, but I like it, so I still use it.
It's old school.
Yeah, it's old school. I know you can't use it with anyone else, but maybe it's my safe space where I like go hide and do the design by myself. And when I'm doing something remotely, then we use Miro with the team, and that's really super great for that. But then thinking what my day consists of, I think it really depends on the stage of the project, what is currently happening. So if we are at the early stage and we are not quite sure yet what we are going to do, then it can be quite free form and you are going towards all the ideas that you can possibly get. And I think during that phase, the main point is just to get the ideas out of your head on paper in any form possible. And that's why diagrams or Miro has been so powerful for me, because it enables you to think more creatively and create associations with things without writing them linearly on paper. Like as soon as I found that, I feel like my light bulb light up like 100 volts or something, because after that, realizing that that associations are not linear, that made my job a lot easier. But then if we are at the stage that we are rather trying to condense the ideas, then I feel like we are always aiming for the game design document in some form or the other, that we are trying to push and get the ideas into that level that we have something to iterate on and to actually test later in the process. So during those days, I feel like it's way more focused, and then it's always about the small tasks that you are trying to get fit to the page that you are trying to make into the game design document, and which you can later test.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay,
I forgot a super good one. We are just it's not a tool, it's rather a service. It's Playtest Cloud. We are like doing a lot of playtests, and these guys, they're amazing. They're instantly available, they are flexible. You can order videos and get them back basically the next day. Order different demographics of players. It's really amazing. So if you like, especially in an early phase where you do not yet have your own players, it's just really great. You can basically launch one every few days. It's pretty good service.
okay.
Yeah, and to keep adding things on it, on top of it. So I haven't started using it, but I got my seed for it. For game designers, I think it's very important to be able to prototype. Paper prototypes are more than enough. I use Figma and visuals like wireframing a lot, but I discovered Protopy recently, which is a non-code based prototyping tool that seems very potent.
Okay.
some people in the teams are starting to use it to make very quick iteration on what the game should be in 2 years or 1 year, whatever. So it's definitely a tool I'm going to dive more into because I'm very code reluctant. Sorry, Beatrix. But doesn't prevent me from be willing to improve and try new processes as far as prototyping goes.
Okay, good. So I think let's circle a bit back to the first question next. So we're gonna talk more about backgrounds. You already touched upon this topic, but is there something that comes from there that influences the way you work or how you would like to design games? Is there something that sort of has carried you in your career or something that you maybe never thought before this moment that I'm asking you this question? Who wants to go first?
I can if no one can.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So coming from tabletop RPG, one of my first thought when testing narrative, but also mechanics is role-playing games. Basically, by putting if you spend a little time immersing the player into your universe or whatever, and put them into the situation that you want to emulate in your game, their answers will give you a lot about what the player is expecting. You can test player expectation very easily by working with tabletop RPGs, and I think it's a very potent tool, but that is often overlooked because there's no technical part in tabletop RPGs, but it's still game design. And if we look at how games have evolved over the past 40 years, tabletop RPGs are what drove the game design evolution. Because we've always tried to reproduce the feeling of this. Even though video games technically started before tabletop RPGs, like mainstream video games started with people trying to make adventure games, like text-based adventure games. Like one of the first one was Zork's Cavern. I don't remember the exact name, but it's a speleologist that was willing to make a tabletop RPG in video games so that people can learn about speleology. And it's super interesting when you think about it that games are just another type of medium that you can use to communicate things.
Yeah, of course.
And to keep going on your question, which was fairly long. So there's been a lot of theorizing tabletop RPG in the early 21st century with the Forge and other child forums and discussion websites. And it was right around that moment that game design started popping as a discipline in video games. And the two of them evolved in different directions, but one thing that you can find in common was that differentiation between the focus on narrative and the focus on game rules, which some people in video games call ludology and narratology, but they are actually coming from the academics, whatever. And I've been trying to apply that framework to video games because in tabletop RPG, this is called the GNS theory. So gamist, narrativism, and simulationism. So different optics, like what is the experience you want to provide your player with? And it's another type of working the fantasy. It's been evolving a lot since then. The threefold model is completely dated now. We're 20 years later, so it's only normal. But the theory that you can find in tabletop RPG can inform the way we evolve as an industry, because it's a smaller universe and it's evolving faster.
Emmi, you want to go next? You also started with non-digital games, so.
Yeah, and I also see a lot of counterpoints to what you said. Like, I think when I first started through service design, I think one of the core learnings that I got from tourism studies was thinking through sorts of blueprints. And I know this doesn't translate to the way we understand blueprints in tech, but blueprints as swimming lanes and designing a game through swimming lanes where you have basically You have front end, you have back end, you have storyline, you have all the technical implementations that are happening simultaneously in the game, and you are seeing sort of the progression of the game linearly. I think that helped me a lot to contextualize what happens in game experience when you are starting to play it as a player. And taking that then further, like once I got a hang of it, like how to design linearly, then I was able to start branching from there. And I think that has probably been the most important tool for me from the start. And then additionally, like connecting to the dynamics of the game, I think what helped a lot in the beginning was the fact that I had done quite a lot of theater when I started doing escape games. So understanding the fact that when you are involving humans in the play process, anything can happen.
You need drama.
Yeah, and that as well. So understanding that whatever you design, it probably won't go the way as you planned because the players are playing it still the way that they want. So that mindset probably helps to think storytelling and narrative design in a different way, because it probably, if I would have come from movie industry, for example, which is traditionally quite linear in the presentation, but rather coming from the improv theater or theater in general, then realizing the fact that it's okay for the game experience to ebb and flow to different directions. So sort of like giving the steering wheel to the player was easier from the start. So probably those were the main things that like were helping a lot in the start of my career to understand games in general, because I didn't have any formal education for that.
If there's no player, there's no play. So
Yeah. Christin?
I have a very simple answer to that stuff. Actually.
That's great.
It's like I've always been a gamer. I've always been a sucker for games since I'm like a little kid. So I guess like all this experience really helps me. It's like usually when people talk to me about an idea about game design, I can throw out, hey, did you play this super random niche game? Because it's like all still in here. Apart from that, well, I mean, just to address it once, I guess we are women. That's also a big thing to like influences us in our game design. I feel like I'm in a very male-focused game, and I can still have a bigger awareness of female audience and casual audience, just inherently. But even that, sometimes doesn't work. Just to give a random example, we make a game where you have a lot of customization and skins, and I watch playtest class videos, and people were like, "Oh yeah, there's so many boys' clothes and so many like nothing girly," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm a girl. I should have caught that." So and I didn't. So I guess speaking about backgrounds, it's good to have a very big balance of very many evened out different people in the team. That just makes it easier.
It usually shows if you don't have that. Then it shows in the end product, and then you have a lot of explaining to do. Barbara.
Yeah, I think going a little bit on to that, also like to me the core reason why I like games is the ability to influence and experience all the realities and adventures and whatnot. So I don't know. To me, like for example, when we're taking usability tests, and then I like observing what the people are doing, not what they're saying that they're doing. Like there's the typical example that there's someone trying to click a button and is like, "Oh yeah, this interface is great. It's so easy to use," and they're like failing like 5-6 times to press the button, and you're like, "But it's so easy," you know. So those kind of things are the things that like we as players, most of the times we don't know what we want. When I was doing a lot of player experience and with the communities, and you hear all this like, "Oh, we want this, we want that, we want that," but it's our job as designers to figure out what is a good thing to do and what, like maybe they don't really need a blue button. Maybe what they needed was a way to have their character do something else. So like it's our job to figure out where that line takes us, instead of just, okay, let's add quick a blue button because that's what they ask for. So in that sense, like to me, it's always about the people, about the experience, how people are playing our games and why are they playing their games. Is like, like you can go very deep into like, I think that they are doing it because of this or that or that. But in reality, it's like, it's for example, when you take those tests of like, what kind of gamer are you? And then like if I take it in a week, it's going to be completely different, because maybe now I was playing Elden Ring and I was really hardcore into playing with my friends, and maybe next week it's kind of like, oh, look at this idol in my phone. It's like, and just clicking through buttons forever, So it's about us. I mean, we are players, we are designers, so to me it's very important to. It's something that has influenced a lot how I view the things that I'm working with. Is like I can sometimes hear the bells ringing and I'm like, players are gonna complain about this, like, but this is what we can tell. So like how you communicate with the players about the changes that you're making, etc. So it's always fun and it's always changing. And as
Is it always fun? Is it always fun?
Well, who knows?
Okay, thank you. So let's move to the second part. I'm looking at the clock. We're still on time. So the next part, I want to talk about learnings. So could you please explain a recent situation where you felt that you learned something, or you would have wanted to know this before it happened? Is there something that you know now that you wish you had known a lot earlier, and you can share that with the others? So maybe we can actually get something concrete out of this. I think, Barbara, you're going to go first. You look like you want to go first.
Rare, right? Anyways, just recently, I was working on we had been talking about how to introduce a bit more of the story that we have into the game, and I was like thinking, it would be very cool if we did this. I was still very new to the team, so I didn't know all the systems and whatnot. And then I was like, okay, one day I'm just gonna open up DaVinci and start making kind of like a quick animation of like how I would visualize something like this. And then kind of like after like really kicking and screaming and of course Googling how to do things, because I couldn't remember how to use DaVinci. And then after kind of like, okay, I have a semi-visualization of this. And then I was at the office, and then I showed it to my colleague, and he was like, oh yeah, we already have a system for that, and here, and it had a couple of bugs, and then we fixed the bugs, and it was kind of like, that was brilliant. I hope I would have communicated what I was trying to do before to the team, and they would have told me, yeah, we have this. You don't have to fight the system. So I think in that terms, it's a very like, okay, I wish I would have known that before, but I wish I would have understand that. Like it's better to start communicating earlier, and it's okay. Like we're not perfect. We don't know everything, and we don't have to. We have to take advantage of what others know and what you know that they don't know, etc. So like really complement our skills, and it's just about try to communicate a bit more and try to find where are the things that can help you both or the team go forward with this kind of thing.
So communicate early on. Okay,
yes.
Perfect. Emmi.
Yeah, thinking of this example, we are doing a small mobile game with our friends during free time, and I'm doing narrative design for that, and then we are 4 people in total, so it's a quite a small team. And what I just had to learn by heart again, I have to say I still haven't learned this lesson, but when you are designing a narrative to the game, don't do it by yourself. Like that's like the story that I have to tell myself over and over and over again. Don't do it by yourself. Don't fall in love by yourself to the story, because that's usually the route to trouble. You're presenting your brilliant idea to the team and they are not kind of getting it. Kinda. And you're like, but it's brilliant in my head. What's wrong with you? And then you again have to tell yourself like, okay, let's talk about this together. What is the story that we want to tell? And it's always going back to the basics. Like it's a team effort. It's not your story. It's a team story. So again, realizing that after one of our meetings was like, oh, okay, yeah, let's go back to the basics. And then it again gets better. And then you learn again. And hopefully you don't repeat the mistake, but you might. And you hopefully learn again after that.
Okay, so communicate and kill your darlings.
Kill your darlings and make new darlings with your team.
Okay, perfect. Christine?
I recently learned how important teams are. So especially now that I'm in a quite big team, a quite fast moving team and a quite high performing team, how important it is to create a safe space, have a lot of psychological safety on the team, because if there are misunderstandings, it's just very costly. It can cost time, it can cost nerves of everybody. So I recently learned that it's very important to also pause, have the time that everybody can talk about their feelings, to really create an environment where it's fine to stop and talk about stuff. Also to implement process where it's needed, even if process might be sometimes a bit suffocating or wearing down. It's sometimes also really, really good to maybe implement Jira. It's a big team. Or if you have a big scope, to like make everybody a bit more safe, because they know what's going on and they know everything that might linger behind the corner, at least most of it, of a scope. And to also, I think one thing that we do here is that we just recently implemented is that we also educate employees to be like more aware of all that stuff. We have a thing that's called Jedis of the Mind. It's pretty cool. So you can sign up. I recently signed up for that, to just like be aware and proactively help bringing all of this stuff more into the teams. I think that's a good thing we could have also done earlier.
That's good. Psychological safety. Very good. Inari?
So it's not that recent, but it was a very good experience indeed. It was when I was working as narrative system designer. I was building the bridge between narrative and game design. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm a very code reluctant person. However, I had to dive a bit into a bit more AI design, and it surprises people when I'm telling this from a narrative designer's perspective, because I had to learn about goal-oriented action planning. I've always been faced with state machines before, so it was another way of designing artificial intelligence to manage human behaviors on a battlefield. So I really wish I knew that before, because the learning was not that easy. For me, because it was another mindset. It was not that bad either, but I think I could have been faster by knowing this kind of design for AI before, because it's so potent if you have many variables to manage. I think, I would have loved to know that earlier, and I wasn't taught that.
Okay. Wow, thanks for sharing. That's a good point. Okay, so let's move on to a slightly different topic, but still let's stay in the learnings. So how do you use player motivation or psychology in your game design? So let's sort of switch the focus to the player side. So what do you want your players to feel or get from the game when you design? Is there something that you always have in mind, or something that always changes depending on the project you're working on? And I think you're going to start.
It really depends on the project and on the phase. Like one thing for player motivation I had really good experience with is a vendor as a service you can use. It's Quantic Foundry. So especially if you are on the very, very beginning of making a game and you might not be really sure about what your players care about, you can give them a certain demographics of players, certain persona of players, and they will give you some kind of like a player profile, what they care about or what they might not care about. So if they are like totally into collection features, or if they really care about PvP, or that something blows up, or whatever it is. So it's like really good to create a persona for your game. And even if you can even feed in different games that might be similar to yours, and then you can get pretty good results. So we used it a lot in creating new games, just to know, do we have really enough features to satisfy these kind of players that might really be into collection or whatever, or in social gameplay. So that really helps. And we made this persona for player motivation very early on, and kept it to our hearts and reconsulted it basically until we had finally real players and could ask them and could see what they care about, if we hit that or not. And it works pretty well. Highly recommend.
Did they align?
Mostly.
Good to know. Okay, Barbara. Players and their psychology, what do you want them to feel?
I think everything, it depends. It's like trying to define how do we make the game more fun? Is
define fun first.
The vein of everyone. How do you make it more fun? I think at least the way I like to do it is maybe there's different features or different motivations for the players to engage with different sections of the game, and then try to see like, okay, if this kind of players are going to be trying to do this kind of things and they're going to go for these, is there a way that we can engage the players that are not following that kind of motivation and give them kind of like another track that they can also follow, and then eventually like merge them into somewhere else. Like, so it's most kind of like the guiding star, kind of like, why are players going to engage with that particular system or event or feature or something, and how can we help them along the way so that we can spread their goals around so that they can follow the breadcrumbs, right? So I think mostly like that, like at least to me, it's kind of like the guiding star. Like, okay, what like explore your audience. Like, what are the reasons why people are playing the game, and then try to cater to them.
Okay, Inari?
The expression you finished with was the one I was about to start with. So catering is actually a good word. To me, game design is applied psychology in general. Like, all we do is understand the player and cater to needs that we anticipate. We might fail. It's all right. There's no problem in failure. But when I was a game design teacher, the first things I taught was game genres and then targeting audiences. And from those, you can create matrices from what you want to do with a specific feature or a specific project. When you're working on small games or mobile games or whatever, a game is a project. But when you're working on a game like Assassin's Creed, which involves 1,200 people, a feature is a project. And then you have to analyze whatever you need from it to be able to deliver the right thing. So overall, we're using mechanics to talk to human biases and to brains, because in the end, what we're providing as service makers is experiences that are sometimes different from the daily routines, sometimes the same, because not every game has to put you in a power fantasy that is completely something you will not do ever in your life. Sometimes it's more about the common things. I'm thinking about Coffee Talk at the moment because it's a very mundane experience that is very true. As someone that has been a barista in the past, you can relate to what's happening in it, even though you don't meet elves and orcs and vampires on a daily basis, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on the species you have in mind. There's quite a bit of player motivation and psychology. The persona system, which is very interesting, has a lot of perks, and it allows you to face people when you don't have playtest clouds or playtesters to manage at the moment.
Okay. I'm going to circle back to the personas after Emmi's answer. But yeah, Emmi, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think at the moment, while doing research in human-computer interaction, I think I get inspired by psychology almost daily nowadays, that I find a new way to understand people better. And somehow that inspiration seems to translate to design work as well. It might be not directly as like I find a psychological theory, let's implement that, but in the back of my head it starts to brew. And especially at the moment I'm researching mysteries, so curiosity has been coming up a lot, and I'm really fascinated by it at the moment because it seems quite promising that curiosity is also a little bit less egocentric motivational force than potentially those driver forces that motivate you to compete. So that's why curiosity could potentially be a more sustainable motivational force as well. And I'm really interested to find out what motivates curiosity and how would you like distribute those breadcrumbs along the game to keep people interested and keep playing and have that certain level of uncertainty always involved at the game moments. So I'm really like super hyped about curiosity at the moment.
Okay.
So hopefully I'll find ways to implement that better in the future. But I think that's the case. Like you find the things that interest you in psychology, and then you think like, how can I utilize this information? And then you implement that into your design work.
Oh, that's interesting. So
could it be that your escape room business was called Mystery?
Might have not been a coincidence.
But so back to the personas. You already touched upon this. But how detailed should those personas for the gamers be when you're designing a game, or how detailed would you like them to have? Do you just have like a vague persona, or do they have or other characteristics just than just demographics, so social status or something like that? I mean, you all design quite different types of games, so.
I think it's important to experience everything yourself, so we really get a touch for it. So what I like to do, whatever game I'm on, it's like I really become a fan. It's like back at Ubisoft, we made fitness games, so we really started to go into fitness studios, play all the fitness games that were just to get a mindset and find a master if possible. So either you will prowl the forums of a game or like go to game conventions that are similar to whatever you game are making, or we went to fitness expositions back then and really invited trainers and asked them to like really get to fully grasp it. It's good to experience yourself and just to ask the people you make the games for. Makes it easier.
To get back to persona, usually when I'm making one, I'm going a bit beyond demographics. I think it's very important to create not to create, but to give them behaviors that you need to cater to. Basically, game design is, like I said, psychology, but most specifically behaviorism. So we have to manage behaviors. So if you give your personas quirks, or like, this person is only playing when they're getting back from work, so in the weekend they're not playing. How do you manage the fact that they will not be playing for 2 days? Do you penalize them for not be coming for 48 hours? So it doesn't need to be that detailed overall. I would never go further than half an A4 page. But just enough so that it feels like this person has texture and you can meet them in the street.
But you can play Candy Crush with one hand while you're breastfeeding. I think that was one of their personas. So that's pretty detailed.
It's fairly detailed, but it's one quirk behavior.
Yeah, it is.
One thing I'm very careful of these days when designing dialogue systems is, okay, we have to have players that can play with one hand. Okay, but why do the text go to the bottom of the screen when the thumb is there waiting to press? I cannot read when that happens. So let's just put it on top of it or try to find another way. There's a lot of options there, but having personas can help you dive into this kind of things. Like, this person is going to play in the metro, so they need to be holding a bar or whatever when they're playing. That's one thing.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think you want to construct a person as deep as it takes for you or the team to get inside their head and offer you the different perspective for the game. And you might not have to get deep for that. In some cases, you might understand the person better with less detail, but it's ultimately just getting the perspective visible.
The problem is the deeper you get, the less broad the experience can get. Because if you try to cater to too specific needs, the people that don't have those needs might
then you're going to exclude them.
Excluded, yeah.
Barbara, you want to add something?
Yeah, and I think it also depends a lot on the kind of experience that you're trying to give to the players. And if it really matters to you, for example, if you're making an event that, it should be a flash event, it lasts 1 hour. Okay, but what about all the half the planet that is asleep at that time? Or like, okay, maybe we do it 2 hours, but do you really need it to be that short? Or can you have like 24 hours, 48? I mean, it's because sometimes we try to narrow it down to one persona, but also like a demographic of like, hey, who's like, we have players all over the world, not just here and now. So also need to consider that the times are changing. There's people that, for example, people that travel, and we always have the issues with the people that cross time zones and then they lost rewards or gain more or cheated or all these kind of things that it's the swarm of stuff that you get when the first version of your game goes live, and then you start seeing how it's being used, and it's like, we didn't consider that people will be traveling, and it's the most common thing, like because maybe the persona didn't say like, hey, this is a person that every Christmas goes and visits their parents in another country or things like that. So I think it's is like, how do you go so deep that it's meaningful, but at the same time that it's so broad that it covers all your audience? So.
That's a very good question. Okay, let's stay with players and move to a bit. Let's move to feedback. So, does it affect your design process? The feedback you get from players. How do you collect it? How do you analyze it? Or is that something you're not doing but should be doing? Or why aren't you doing it? I think let's start with you.
So we do it a lot. Like a lot, because especially if you're not live and you're like kind of like limited a little bit. So I also already mentioned Playtest Cloud. It's a really good tool if you want to see what people play. You get little videos and they are forced to speak out loudly while they play. So it's perfect if you want to test your first time user experience and you want to see where people fail and why to really understand what's going on. It's really good. If you need more deeper thing, we use VGM. It's like a vendor where you can like make bigger play tests with like really people live. We travel to San Francisco to really watch play tests there, and it just really hits different if you see the players directly and they get guided group discussions afterwards. So if you need like a big specific demographic or just a big player base, they are like really perfect for that. And otherwise, I guess, yeah, we do team playables all the time. So it's just good to like get a feel back from your game and also get a good feel from everybody in the team. We had like daily playables. That's pretty cool. So everybody can chat about a team. It's also good for the team to just come together and talk about stuff. And comedy playables is like, I think as often as possible, you should kind of do that. It's like what we are doing at the moment. It's like we're tapping also in demographics that we might not have heard from our game enough. So we tapped a lot into female players. What might they feel about a game? They're probably different. What's with casual players or with very young players, because their player behavior also differs. We also do different playtests in different areas. So we do like playtests in Korea or playtests in America just to know, okay, how do they really behave? And they are different. So I guess every playtest there is meaningful, and we do implement most of the feedback that's coming in.
Yeah. Emmi, you want to go next?
Well, if thinking from escape room context, it would be nicer if we were able to test sooner, but eventually it boils down to the fact that you actually have to have a built room before you can test the whole thing. So,
did you test at all?
Well, we do test at all, but we do it through a worst case scenario. So basically we have this really super intense testing weeks, which are 2 weeks before the launch. And it means essentially that we will have to have the bare bones version of the game ready at the start of the testing week. Then we get the first team in. They say that, okay, about 80% of it works, but we still have to change the 20%. And we really have to build it anew in those cases.
And you have 2 weeks.
Yeah, then we have 2 weeks. We have multiple testing rounds. We iterate a lot. We might change the whole place and whole scenario of the like gameplay and everything, and ultimately it gets better, but it's really exhaustive. But I haven't yet found out what would be the more efficient way to do it better, to include the players in the process. But the thing is that you would have to involve so much facilitation and role playing without the actual physical room on the place that it sort of won't make that much sense. But we have resorted to the fact that, okay, then we are rotating the game between different teams, or we are asking our friends to play it and asking those people to give feedback who have the sense what the play can be at its potential best time. Yeah. And that has helped a lot. But it would be great to have players more involved. I think that's the answer always the game designers give. That would be great to have the players, but
yeah,
there's the but.
Yeah, there are definitely buts there. Barbs?
All right. So, as someone that used to do it, I would really recommend get community managers, get people, even your own players acting as moderators in your communities. They tend to grab, kind of like I once in DevCon there was a Sarah. No, not Palin. There was no. Wait. Cross wires. Anyways, there was a community manager from Blizzard talking, and I remember that they were talking about this. It's kind of like the community managers. We are the shield that protects the developers. So because they take all the raw feelings from the players and they just condense it into kind of like, okay, people are having troubles doing this, or would like to be able to do that, instead of, feelings. So I think you definitely you need to take advantage of the power these people have, and they help you collect. There's for smaller teams, as you can, the community managers or the moderators can help you get all the information and good pieces out of it. But there's also, for example, tools that I've been wanting to try, and now in my team, I know that the player experience are getting this tool called Afogata. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, coffee pen. Don't worry.
Yes. This tool that helps collect what, for example, my community managers used to do in the previous team, like manually go to Discord, to Facebook, and get the information, kind of like the positive, the negative, and kind of like the neutral, and try to gauge what is the player sentiment. And now there's tools, for example, AI, this tool that you connect it to all your social media, and then it starts grabbing all the stuff. And I remember looking at it the first time as a player experience, and I was like, this would be great for designers, because then you can go very specific, kind of like, okay, I want to see what is the sentiment on red heroes of certain class or species or something, and then you can be very particular about what you're looking for, and then get the messages straight from the players. Kind of like, of course, there is a kind of like a little bit of a dangerous two-edged sword there, that you don't have the protection here from your team, getting the feelings out of it, but you can still see kind of like, okay, maybe these are all related to bugs, and these the players are getting this kind of feelings from the events, and kind of like they would like to engage with these certain features in a different way. So I think, well, at least I'm very excited, and I have a call soon with the team to show me the tool, how it's gonna work. So as a designer, I'm very interested, and because it's what I used to do before, of course, it's kind of like just like merging into that.
Yeah. Okay. Inari?
Yeah, I'm usually the person that is tested upon rather than the person testing stuff. However, in my previous projects, when I was testing, I was usually gathering data from, asking the UR, so user research manager, to gather data for me. So they were leading the various play tests, and I was just asking a list of questions that I wanted to be solved during the set play test. And from that, to get back to the collect and analyze, I would just try and isolate the friction points that I should work on to fine-tune the things. In earlier stages, I tend to test things with co-workers, and the further we go, the further from the development team I get. I think good playtests should be done once in a development cycle, not cycle as a whole, but like every unit of development you have, like it might be a sprint, it might be a month, but every now and then for each milestone, you should have these playtests to keep track of your consistency overall. It really depends on what you're working on. Obviously, there's no one size fits all as far as playtest goes, but I do think you should not get actual player, not developer player feedback too early on, because it can drive decisions that might not be the right ones. It's a very dangerous tool. It's a very useful one to test friction, but not to drive decision, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's a valid point. Colin, what do you think? We have plenty of time still, so should I continue with the questions, or should we go to audience questions? Do we have audience questions? We have one in Zoom, but do we have some here?
Yeah, I think 20 minutes, I think it would be great.
Yeah, I think we'd rather take audience questions. Okay, Tatu.
Yes, thank you.
The cube.
Oh, my back. Are you ready for this? This is where
You better catch.
I better catch. Hi, question to all of you. I'm curious, in your work, what do you find, or what are you allergic to? Or if you don't know what that is, can you describe something that sometimes frustrates you in your work? I'm curious.
mansplaining. Yes.
Yeah. Anything else?
Repetitiveness. Like I hate having. Oh, well, there's a balance. Like when I'm implementing, there's a meditative state to managing data in engine that I do love, but having to perform the same task or working on the same specific feature over and over again really gets to my nerves as someone with ADHD. I need to have changes, and being a support means that I change project on a very regular basis and even topic in the same project. So it's helping a lot. But when I was working on The Crew or even on Assassin's Creed, I was given responsibility over features that I spent months working on. And when you're working on narrative part, it's very like you get anchoring and numbness to the content you're producing at some point. So the numbness plus the boredom doesn't make a nice cocktail for me.
Emmi?
I'm still trying to think. Can I pass the question
Yeah.
to someone else before that?
I do have a very low frustration tolerance. So I'm pretty. There must a lot of stuff happen to make me frustrated. I'm rather one of the people that likes to sniff out other people's frustrations to try to clear the room. Yeah, exactly. I think I'm like with one of these nice smell things that make the room smell good. Against frustration, that's me. So
Still thinking.
Still thinking. I might get back to you on this.
Yeah. Barbara, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think in terms of like some of the things that I don't enjoy at all are when there's problems with the communication with the team, and there's kind of like there's friction, and I don't know, I just like everyone to behave and like be friends, and like very weird. But anyways, like to me, like when I see that there's this friction or someone's being very condescending to another colleague or something like that, like it really bothers me because it gives me a bad feeling, and then kind of like then you're working and then you change the way that you work because maybe you're being affected by someone else's feelings that had nothing to do with you, but you're still kind of like, oh, I didn't like how someone else treated someone else. And it's kind of like, is this kind of things that, like, we're people. I mean, we always have to, why are you pointing someone? Oh, all right. I forgot what I was saying.
Okay.
Emilia, I had another thing to answer you. And one thing I do hate is when I tell directors there are decisions that should be done from a floor perspective, they say no immediately. And 1 year later, someone above them is saying the exact same thing. And then the thing is implemented. It's such a waste of money and time for everyone. I think directors in general should listen to their floor workers because, yes, they have the higher up vision, but when you go into the details and granularity, there's a lot of issues that the directors cannot see on a daily basis.
I'm hoping we have that less here in Finland than we have in France.
I wish. But I'm not there yet. I don't know yet.
Now I invented mine. I hate unnecessary work. Wasting everyone's
Don't we all,
time.
though?
Yeah, wasting everyone's time on the stuff that you are supposed to do. That's what I'm allergic to.
Yeah. Okay. Next.
Small details. Yes.
You have.
I'm gonna do this because I'll probably throw it wrong. I'll just be the nice guy and then.
Colin, you need a mic yourself.
Real life UX design, accessibility.
Please go ahead.
So my question was about each of your perspectives around, I don't know how to phrase it, but like productive friction. I feel like there's been a kind of crusade against friction in UX, and to the point where you almost don't feel like you're playing a game anymore. And we see the really positive feedback to games like Immortality or Elden Ring and so on that one might suggest there is some friction. And yeah, I'd just love to hear your perspectives on that.
Well, the start from challenge is always have been and probably will be, hopefully, an integral part of games. So I don't see the point of reducing all the friction from the game experience. When it comes to the usability, then it's obviously a different case. But I think each and every one of us want to create interesting games. And I think part of that interest is to create the challenge that the user wants to defeat with their own agency and with their own skill. So yeah, I think that summarizes what I think about the thing. Like that is, it seems like the discourse around the world is currently like going to the direction that everything is supposed to be easier and there shouldn't be any challenge on anything. But I hope it's not going completely on that direction. But in my opinion, game industry is exactly the place where we are supposed to give those challenges to the people and give them the challenges that they can use in their everyday lives and therefore like not just zoom through their life in bubble.
It's a very tricky question since you seem to arrive from the UX angle, and in the UX, yes, removing friction is the thing to go. And I, to this day, I will not change my opinion. It's the way we have to go as an industry, like removing usability friction. On a game design perspective, it's a bit different because there cannot be a game if there's no friction. It's been theorized in the 50s by a French philosopher called Roger Caillois. If there's no uncertainty as far as to the issue, the outcome, there's no game. So it might be a win condition, a lose condition, both, but there cannot be neither. Otherwise, it's not a game. It's just a trap. I disagree that the current discourse is to remove difficulty or friction from games. I think it's about adding more granularity so that more people can access it. As someone marginalized, I have to put myself into more dominant people's shoes, but also as into the shoes of people that are less privileged than I am. And removing friction for them is the way I want to go. And that's why I love working with UX. The problem for friction in game design is a nonsense, because if you remove the friction, you remove the game.
Barbara?
Yeah, I mean, we all like a good challenge. I mean, even if it's that boss that you can't beat and you have fought it a million times, but you're still there because all the other bosses were at a good challenge rating that you still went through, but there's that one that you can't, and it makes the whole game better because there's that one that you haven't beaten, and eventually you will beat it, and you're just kind of like,
And keeps you coming back to the game.
Yeah, even though you've played hundreds and hundreds of hours.
Yeah, to be careful with the boss examples, because that's increased friction with a purpose, but there's friction in merge games as well. Like the friction is, how do you organize this to have the outcome you want?
It's like the players that in a merge game, like, we want like for example the wildlife that is picking the nectar automatically from the flowers, and you're like, no, you're messing up, no. But at the same time, we need a little bit of chaos, so that is the challenge. That kind of like, how will I manage my stuff in a way that will make the game do what I want as a player? So you always need to have a little bit of chaos.
Yeah.
I guess not only to look at the UX or at the game side, it's also we making mobile games. It's very important that we do have a friction with you as a player, with your life, because we want you to play every day and play over the course of years. So it's a big discussion for us. How much playtime per day or per week do we really require for you? Is it okay if you play only a little bit and you will be happy that different player types that might be a bit more shallow on the time they want to invest, and they're the ones that are really crazy and they want to play as much as they can. So the friction to really align these in this game system, I think that's a daily discussion we are having here. It's pretty constant discussion we are talking about that.
Yeah. We have time for two more, I think.
Easy.
Thank you. I have a question. So, for you as game designers, how do you feel about large language models getting popular as, for example, like ChatGPT? How has it affected your work as game designers, if at all? And how do you see large language models affecting your work in the future?
I don't know for the others. I know Barbara started this week trying with ChatGPT. It's fairly recent for myself. I have friends that are data analysts that trained me a bit, taught me a few prompts that make my life easier. Overall, I'm suppressing the personality that is already implemented to make sure that the new ChatGPT becomes someone that has more knowledge than myself. And I ask the questions that might help me overall, so I can make them right for me. I can just test my ideas and hypotheses on a very quick way without having to bother my colleagues that might not have the nuance of what I'm thinking about, because I'm not working in my first language. There's a lot to be done there. I think it's also dangerous, as some countries have banned ChatGPT recently, and it's going on a bit further down the line because there's legal issues. It's a gray area at the moment, so I would advise everyone in this room to be very careful with using ChatGPT, especially if the content that you're managing is going out. I've had lead games offering to use ChatGPT to write the texts in the place of writers, which I think is not ethical, but also dangerous, because in 2 or 3 years, you might get sued for this. So I advise caution. It doesn't mean that it's bad. I think that the nice opportunity there, since it's open source, is to get it and to rework it so that it works the best for you as a designer. There's a lot to be done there. If you want to try alternatives, there's Pizza GPT, which is the Italian versions coming after the ban, because Italy is the first country that banned it in Europe recently. So they made an alternative version that doesn't gather your data. I think it's potent. I think, though, the same as with NFT, we should be careful with hype trends. As designers, we need to have insight on how to use new tools, because the bandwagon might be leading into a wall.
Christin, you want to continue?
I don't have an opinion. I don't use them. I use them in my free time to play around. I think it's
well,
fun
I'm
to
a
do,
comms
but,
professional. I use it constantly. Don't tell anyone.
nothing to add.
Emmi?
I just actually used it last week I tried it out for character design, and I was quite baffled by the uninterestingness of the character that it created for me. I was like, I couldn't believe my eyes, because everyone kept raving for me about it. And then when I read what it was like portraying to be, I wasn't that impressed, but I did try it with ideation a few weeks back. And in that way, when you're asking is, please tell me 20 different locations that have small rooms inside them. And it did give me a list, and it sort of like helped to reduce the brain power that I would have needed in that case. But then again, like we all know that large language models are being trained to be like the data is taken from online, so it has its biases and it's talking with a certain language after all. So we know that whatever it's giving, it's through a certain filter. And I see there may be a danger that if all of the game designers suddenly started to use ChatGPT, then maybe our ideas will become blunt as well and uninteresting. So hopefully that won't be the case. But I also see that it's a tool as anything else. Like if it helps you to give more ideas, or if it helps you to iterate on your project, then it's already a useful tool. So why shouldn't it be used?
Yeah, I've been testing with game genres and settings together with ChatGPT. I think Code GPT is also a nice tool for programmers. Maybe some will disagree, but it can be a nice tool. Like any tool, you have to train to learn how to use it. I don't think it will make games or game writing in my stead, because it goes towards a certain ungranular direction. And when it comes to writing, it's very neutral. They don't know how people talk in real life because the way we write and the way we talk are different. There's way too much that it doesn't know, and allowing it to gather data outside of the specific context it exists in is very dangerous, as like the Rocco Basilic and stuff. Very dangerous. Let's not get there.
Barbara, you want to add something?
Yeah, I think, well, for me, the
Keep it short.
experience was... What?
Keep it short so we have time for the last question.
Thank you.
Sorry, talking to
Inari, that was a mention to you, a note to you.
I'm a designer.
Barbara, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I started using it because I started hearing from a lot of people that they had been using it for very, like, not for writing their own stuff, but for example, it helps me structure my design documents better. Or it helps me, for example, instead of me Googling the way that you Google, like, oh, the 10 planets that are in the golden zone in other solar systems, you know. And then ChatGPT gave me a great, you know, for a game that spoilers. No spoilers. Anyways, yeah. So like this, as using it as a tool to support what you're trying to do or like to generate ideas for yourself, I think it's great. But again, going to there's still regulations has not caught up with it, and we don't know which way it's gonna go. But I think it's always very, very good also to appreciate that there are experts out there, and there's always people that are great at writing. There are people that are great are making documentation, making code, making. I mean, there's so many people that have specialized in so many things that like I wouldn't want that everything goes is the same with the art AI is like. Yeah, there's amazing artists. Why would I? Yeah, maybe for visualization, something quick for yourself, like it's cool. But if you want your D&D character drawn, like I'd rather ask an artist and have like a really cool art piece in the end. So,
yeah. Okay. Last question. I think we have one in the back row. I think your hand was up already in the beginning.
Can I do it? Can I throw it? Who is the who was it? Okay.
Oh, Colin, that's on you.
Time.
Sorry, I tried.
So you're not American?
Please go ahead.
So firstly, incredible panel. Thank you so much for the time to do this. This was super, super interesting. But I kind of wanted to ask, I've met a lot of designers that essentially saying that programming is a massive part of being a designer. So I kind of wanted to ask you guys, how often do you program as designers?
Never.
Same.
hey, Lies, we did the Game Jam game, and you did a bit, no?
Did I?
Hey, everything that counts.
Whoa.
Well, maybe not program, but like the, you know, I don't know.
Nodal scripting.
What?
Nodal scripting.
Noodle?
Yeah, nodal.
Oh.
Like nodes.
Ah, well, that's fun. Yeah,
that's
I mean,
fun.
But Unity doesn't have that, and I work with Unity. So, but at least I think a lot of the logic, it like,
I do have a longer answer afterwards,
brain is
but
going-
I can let her answer.
Christine, why did you go? In the meanwhile, what do you think?
I don't program at all. I'm not a programmer. I think it, and I think that's okay. I think a lot of game designers do have the, oh my God, a game designer needs to program. I think it's really okay if you can't. So I bet a lot of game designers, they always do have a pet thing. They're really good in Excel, or they're really good in player experience, or they're like me, like a little bit a project manager as well. So, but also if you're just like into pure game design, that's fine. I think we game designers come in a lot of form, and that's the great thing about it. It's even better that you can pair up game designers pretty well that come with different peaks where they're really good at. So I think you don't have to be one. It's great if you are one, but don't be scared. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, to answer you on your question, designing takes a lot of work, and I don't think forcing game designers to program is a good thing. I think understanding programming logic is very important so that you can read code or anticipate your programmer's needs. However, programming is a full-time job. Game designing is a full-time job. I've already came across job positions for technical narrative designer that asked me to be able to program, to design, and to design narrative. And this is 3 people doing their jobs.
And clean.
Yeah. I don't think a game designer should program. It's nice if they can do it. But I think in Finland, historically, the industry comes from mobile and a lot of engineering culture. So there's a huge focus on technical problems rather than design ones, even though it's been addressed. In France, designers are not necessarily expected to program, though in most schools, no one wants to program. The artists are busy, so the designers might need to learn a bit of programming. The school I attended had a different section for game programmers, game designers, game artists, and we had to collaborate because that's the way it works. Like when you're working at Ubisoft, you're not expected to program as a designer. You might be expected to dive into the data, tweak things, do some nodal scripting. But in Finland, I've seen a lot of offers for game design jobs that asked that you could program in C++ or Lua or whatever. I haven't been trained for this, and I don't mind because while it's a very convenient tool for quick prototyping without having to work with someone else, my job is a team job. Like we said, it's a communication work. So I prefer having to work with a programmer and an artist that will provide me with more insights than what I have, rather than being able to do this all on my own, only to test it and to discover that it doesn't work. The programming is very important, but designing is as well. The industry has been overlooking game design for a while because historically there was only artists and programmers, and someone had to do the game design, and at some point game design said, oh, there's a lot more to do, we need someone more. And yeah, that's the way it worked back then. We've evolved since, but sometimes I still think designers are overlooked.
Yeah. Does anyone want to add anything?
That was such a good answer that I feel like no one should add anything.
So designers are overlooked. Not after this. Thank you, everyone. It's 8:00 on the dot.
Hello. Is this still on? I'll use the box.
Yes, you can use.
Well, thank you so much. This has been really insightful. It's been really great. I would say personally, it's been really fun experience to organize this and meet all of you. It's like a new network for me, so I want to thank you for that. Thank you. So now we're gonna do some networking. So yeah, we'll just I think there's still sandwiches if you would like, and there's drinks, coffee, tea. A couple of things I wanted to mention is we'll have another one of these still this year. Well, I would say before the summer. When I said this year, I somehow feel like it changes when summertime happens. But yeah, before the summer, if you have any ideas for the next event, not this coming next, but one after that, feel free to come if you guys want to share some ideas or thoughts about what we could do. Very open. Like to continue the like community feeling. I think this has been really great. And
maybe you should do a workshop.
We could do a workshop. We have one idea. Workshop. But yeah, come visit me afterwards if you want to chat more, and thank you again. It's been really great, and have a great week. Thank you.
Thanks.